For many years, neuroscientists have studied the physiological impact of worship on the brain. So what did they find? Do these acts contribute to overall health and wellness? And do certain centers in the brain become more active during moments of spiritual transcendence? In the 1960s, neuroscientists began examining the effects of faith and worship on the brain. This research was called neurotheology. In a thorough analysis of all neurotheological research from 1872 until 2010, it was discovered that faith, meditation, and worship could induce positive effects on physical as well as mental health. In a study by Dr. Harold Koenig titled Religion, Spirituality, and Healing, a direct correlation was found between faith and happiness, positivity, self-esteem, and family stability. Surprisingly, they also found a connection between faith and enhanced body immunity. Other studies proved that increased faith led to a reduction in depression, stress, anxiety, suicide rates, and addiction. Additionally, they saw a reduction in the risk of vascular disease, high blood pressure, risk of cancer, and even death. Scientific studies affirm that belief in God is an inherent human need with its own neurological mechanisms and centers in the brain. Researchers use functional MRI to determine what parts of the brain light up and become active when a person experiences moments of spiritual transcendence. Studies began to discover that every person possesses similar mechanisms regardless of their religion. Just as any person becomes physically cleaner with the act of washing, every person can reap the positive effects of spiritual transcendence through meditation, worship, and contemplation. These processes stimulate and activate parts of the brain that transform states of stress or apprehension into states of serenity, tranquility, and peacefulness. One of the most important and fascinating experiments conducted at Yale University focused on a part of the brain called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain has direct active links with the centers of pain and fear. Despite its significant importance in protecting us at times of actual danger, this part of the brain can cause us to become exhausted and overwhelmed by random thoughts. It can put us in a state of constant apprehension and fear. Hence, it becomes a source of stress and anxiety, depriving us of our comfort, serenity, and peace of mind. And since this part of the brain focuses on one's individual needs rather than the needs of others, it has been called the me center. It was discovered that during periods of meditation and worship, the direct link between the me center and the centers of fear and pain diminishes, thus explaining the sense of comfort and calm that accompanies spiritual transcendence during meditation and worship. Through spirituality, our perspective on events can change for the better. We gain greater control over negative emotions. Events that once seemed painful and unbearable can now be met with courage and perseverance. Furthermore, the connections between the centers of the brain used to evaluate events and those used in fear perception grow stronger. So during these periods of spiritual transcendence, a person is able to re-evaluate events in a more clear-headed and rational manner. Worship helps us avoid being hijacked by fear, anger, frustration, or other negative emotions. Another part of the brain called the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex is also activated during worship. This part of the brain is responsible for the processing of information related to strangers, those we consider different from us. During transcendent periods, connections between this area and the center for pain are augmented, enhancing our sense of empathy towards others. To summarize, we become calmer, more peaceful, and more compassionate. It's fascinating that our physiology actually works in support of God's commands. God commands that the only way to true belief is through love of your fellow human being. When we turn off our me center, we enhance our sense of empathy. We are better prepared to love. Another area in the brain called the superior parietal lobe was found to shut down completely during periods of spiritual transcendence. This area is responsible for recognizing where different parts of the body begin and end, as well as the spatial relationships between our body and our surroundings. During times of worship and transcendence, one loses sense of time and place, allowing for all physical limits and boundaries to disappear, bringing one closer to God. Professor Andrew Newberg, a leading neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania, explains that activity in this part of the brain is the reason some worshippers have reached such a profound degree of transcendence that they seem to depart their physical reality. In 2011, Sarah Lazar, a professor at Harvard University, performed a series of studies to prove that meditation and worship lead to actual, real physical changes in the brain. After a period of 8 weeks experiencing spiritual transcendence, the part of the brain known as the hippocampus, responsible for learning and creating new memory cells, showed an increase in size. At the same time, the brain showed a reduction in the area known as the amygdala. The amygdala is responsible for feelings of fear, stress, and anxiety. It is therefore not surprising that we find greater comfort and lower anxiety as a result of spirituality. Preserving these positive transformations in the brain requires ongoing practice because the neural connections formed can rapidly diminish if worship and meditation is discontinued. The brain reverts to its original state. This change in the brain is called neuroplasticity. This phenomenon may explain why prayer is prescribed 5 times a day in Islam, and why the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to tell Bilal, who called people for prayer, "Bilal, comfort us with it." Today, we find hundreds of studies, books, and scientific experiments that affirm the health benefits of worship. Among such books are The God Gene, Hardwired for God, How God Changes Your Brain, and Born to Believe. Although scientific experiments cannot directly inform us about the essence of God, they can tell us that belief in Him is a natural need. They tell us that the human brain is not only physiologically hardwired for God, but it also heals itself through meditation and worship. Many people think that they can treat illness simply by taking pills and medicine, but only a few realize that illness is a cry from within, a cry alerting us to the need to seek balance between body and spirit. Nothing will bring you more wellness than to make your life a journey toward that balance between your body and your spirit, so that each thought and movement is a reflection of that union, instilling meaning into all that we do in life. Say, my prayer and my worship, my life and my death are devoted to God, the Lord of all.